often I sit down to record and then I'm like, this is episode whatever, but I don't actually remember what episode it is. So I just like went onto my YouTube account to double check, and the first thing that pops up is YouTube being like, it's been a while since you've posted. Connect with your subscribers or something. Like, I'm trying to, okay? Okay. Hi, my name's Kirsten. This is the Paper Knits podcast, episode number 13, and it's also my 1-year podcast-iversary. Pod-iversary. I don't know. So on May 1st last year is when I posted my first episode, and the plan is that this one's also going up on May 1st. So we'll see how my editing goes over the next couple of days here. Today is April 28th, so we will pretend that it's May 1st and it's the 1-year mark of me posting my first podcast. And some of you have been here right from the very beginning, and I so appreciate that. It was very nerve-wracking posting that first one. I feel nervous every time I post one, but that first one especially was quite nerve-wracking, and I just so appreciate the very warm welcome that I had to this YouTube world of people who talk about their knitting, and that somehow people found me and stuck around, and it has been a very positive thing in my life over this past year that has otherwise been a very difficult year. I so appreciate all of the support that I have had over this past year about my knitting, but then also about as I've processed my grief. This has been a very helpful tool for me to process my grief. My knitting and my grief have been very intertwined, and that meant it's also been what I've shared about with all of you on my podcast. And I really appreciate how many people reached out to share their own experiences of that, of how knitting helped them through grief, and to be able to share that with people who just like understand that like so deeply and just get it, right? They just get it about why knitting would help with something so horrible. And yeah, the wonderful comments that I've received, some of the like most soothing things that people have said to me after losing my daughter have been in comments on YouTube videos. And like we've had great support from our friends and family in person, and I'm so grateful for that. And I think it feels it was unexpected, I think, for me to also be receiving such great support from people who just happen to come across my knitting video on a YouTube, on the YouTube feed or whatever. And so, yeah, it just has meant, this podcast has meant a lot to me this year. And I mentioned in my last episode that I've like, yeah, it's just, I wish I could do it more than I do. And also I think I said in my last episode that I'm like, oh, I replied to everybody's comments. And then I've replied to 0 comments from my last video. And like, oh, I should go and do that. Oh, I should go and do that. And feel sad that I have not made the time to do that in those last, I don't know how long it's been since I posted last time. I don't know, month and a bit, because I do truly appreciate it, and I appreciate being able to connect with people there, and I've connected with people on Instagram, and yeah, it's been a really positive thing in the midst of like a lot of not good things at all. Life has been hard for a variety of reasons, and I'm so grateful for my knitting and how that itself has been such a positive aspect of my life. I'm grateful that I had knitting before going through horrible grief. That's like, it's been a helpful thing to carry me through. And then also to be able to connect with a bunch of other people about knitting, about this thing that we all love and that we enjoy and that we're interested in and curious about and challenged by, and that we get to be creative about and connect with people about. I just think it's so wonderful. So thank you, everybody. I'm going to do my first giveaway to celebrate being on YouTube for 1 year. And so I have a handful of skeins of yarn that I would like to gift to people. And so I will say in a little bit about how we're going to do that, because I don't actually have 100% know at this exact moment. So I will add that in though some point. So yeah, you can connect with me on Instagram as well. I am at paper.knits on Instagram. I'm on Ravelry as thisispaperknits. I try and post like all of my like projects. I keep my project pages up to date pretty good. I also link a bunch of stuff in the description box here on YouTube. I really like links. I like when I'm watching a podcast when they say some name of a pattern and I can like immediately go and look at it and like yeah, so I always have links to everything that I mention in the description box. You can find my social media stuff there too. So yeah, you can come say hi to me on Instagram, add me as a friend on Ravelry, whatever, and I like connecting with people there too. Okay, so there has been a lot of knitting. I have knit an entire sweater in the time since I filmed my last episode, but I cannot share it with you until like September. And so yeah, I can't talk about it, but I like vlogged as I made it, and I'm gonna try and put together a vlog that then I can share in the fall when the pattern's released. It's a very lovely cardigan that I have been wearing a lot. It's springtime now, which here in Edmonton means like we had snow 2 weeks ago, but I think we're probably done with the snow now. But the weather's definitely warming up. It's like not a time for a woolly mohair sweater. That other one I just finished, but I have been wearing it when I can. And then the other one that I finished, which I think I did show in my last episode, is the Turtle Dove cardigan. This is by Melissa Clulo from Sonder Yarn Co. And so this was in Lina magazine, Lina from autumn into 2023, and the pattern just like a couple of weeks ago was released. Like Melissa got the pattern back to her so that she could release it. So she releases, I think, all of her patterns for free. So you can get this pattern for free now on her Ravelry, but that's what it looks like in the Lina magazine. So that's like, there's a handful of patterns in this edition that I quite like, and so that's why I bought it. But I knew I wanted to make this one. I made it with Drops Air, which I had never used before. I had bought the yarn on Boxing Day sales, which was the day that my daughter died last year, and so I coped with that by spending a lot of money on Boxing Day sales. And this was one of those project plans. So and yeah, I'm really happy with how it turned out. I made like quite a few modifications to it, and what I wanted was to recreate this sweater. And so you might think, oh wow, what a nice cardigan here that you've knit, but no, this is like from a store. It's actually from a Jilly box, which if you know what that is, then yeah, if you know, you know. It's a like subscription box from Jillian Harris, who is a influencer who lives in Canada here. She like grew up in rural Alberta. Now she lives in Kelowna. She was on The Bachelorette. Or she was on The Bachelor. She was on The Bachelorette. I could go on and on about her. She's like my go-to influencer on social media that I follow, and she has influenced me in many ways. One of those things is that I have a subscription to her subscription box. And anyways, this is one of the items from like a while ago, and it's a cardigan from The Skinny, which is an Edmonton company actually, and I wear it all the time. So it's called the Erin cardigan, I think, and this was like, I think like special edition or whatever for the Jilly box, but I wear it all the time. This one's cotton and acrylic, and it's like a little bit longer, like 3/4 length sleeve. It could have used, you probably can't see that, but it could have used a bit of a detail. I've had it for a couple years now. I wear it all the time, and so I wanted this sweater to like emulate this sweater, to be my like home cardigan. Oh, I should say, maybe you haven't noticed that either, I'm wearing heart polka dotted clothing, which could be normal, but also it's my pajamas, because this is how I will be wearing this cardigan 95% of the time. It is a home, cozy, like, yeah, throw over my jammies cardigan, which is mostly what this one is. Sometimes I wear it out of the house too, but I always have a cardigan on. I have another one that I bought from a store that's kind of a similar idea. It's like a slightly different shape, but like it's the same vibe, open front cardigan, and wear it all the time. Like have worn holes in it that I like have had to mend, and that's what I wanted this one to be too. So I did put on makeup and do my hair, but I kept on my pajamas. I had been wearing my pajamas all day, and then I kept them on, but I did put makeup on so I could film. But anyways, here's my outfit. I could like style it with like real clothes, but like this is literally how I will be styling it at all times. So a couple of modifications that I made for this is I changed the increase rate on the raglan. And so in the pattern, and like there's the Turtle Dove 1 and 2, and then the Turtle Dove Cardigan, and they all have a really deep yoke, and like, you know, a shorter arm than, it's definitely like it's like kind of oversized, kind of like batwing kind of style. And I didn't want it to be quite so deep in the armhole. And so it's raglan, and in the pattern, I think that you increase, it's the same increase rate for like front, sleeves, back, throughout the whole thing. There's like very few stitches at the front when you first start. Like this section here is like very narrow. The arm is quite wide, and then the back is like pretty normal. But by increasing just like every other round all the way, like it takes a lot of rows then for you to get to like your full stitch count. And so I keep saying that I'm like not good at knitting raglans, and that's true. I found this much easier knitting it flat, I think, because I didn't have to keep track of a beginning of round and knowing which marker was my beginning of round. And for the most part, I was knitting, I just was like, I would knit one round and that would be an increased round, and then I would purl back and that was a plain round. But then I started fiddling with some of those increase rates. And so I ended up adding increases on the wrong side on the front panel. So I like did the normal increase rate, and then I did an accelerated increase rate, and then I went back to the regular increase rate. And so I think that that's kind of like what a compound raglan shaping would end up being. But I knew what my target number was. I did aim for one size larger in the arms because they were going to be split sooner. And so if they're like split by your elbow, like you don't need as much circumference there than like at your bicep, at least for me. Not that I'm strong. I don't have bicep muscles. I have bicep mass. And so I went up a size for the arms. And so I just like, I knew what my target numbers were, and I just like, I would like knit for a little bit and like double check it and like try it on and see how it fit. And I think it's good. It's like maybe an inch longer, like an inch deeper than maybe I would have done, but ultimately it's just fine. I'll just stand up if I can here. So it's like almost below my butt, not quite. The front panel here has like a twisted rib section, and then it's twisted rib again at the bottom. And then it's supposed to be twisted rib at the cuff here, but I just found off in stockinette and like left it rolled, which is what this one is. And so I don't usually like a rolled hem, but I wanted that on here. It's just like it's easy, it's loose. I knit until I liked the length, and then I went and did the other sleeve, and I was like, I'm gonna run out of yarn. And so I bought an extra ball of yarn, and then ended up, this is I think how much yarn I had left for what I had bought initially. And so this is like all of my ends that I snipped then. But so I just had enough. I unraveled my swatch. I had a couple, like, you know, the end of a little ball or something that I don't know, maybe when I like finished the body, I had like just a little nubbin, and so then I like started a new ball for the sleeve or something. And so my last few rounds of my sleeve, I have like 3 or 4 yarn joins, but I got them to be the same length, so it was great. And now I have an extra skein of this, an extra donut, an extra ball, which I didn't need to buy, but I did buy, whatever. It will turn into something else one day. But anyways, so yeah, I am quite happy with how this has turned out. I haven't blocked it yet. Like, I just finished it like a couple days ago, and I knew I wanted to film and whatever. One thing I've noticed is like this panel here on the front. Like, it's kind of like what the button band would be, right? But there's no buttons. It's done in twisted rib, and I don't know if it's like the edging is looser, if the like row gauge of it itself is looser. I'm not sure. It's sagging. And so when I block it, I'm going to see if I can get a little bit more length out the back, just to like even that out a little bit, because right now the front is just like, it's kind of, yeah, it's just kind of like hanging down a little bit. Also, in the pattern, it suggests doing a crochet reinforcement along the back neck to keep it from stretching out, which I think I will do, but I don't really want to crack into that other ball of yarn. So if I have another blue that matches, maybe I'll do that, or maybe I'll do like a little accent color. The fabric is very light. It seems very delicate. As I was knitting with it, I was trying to figure out like, what does this remind me of? And then like when I was finished it and like tried it on, and it's like, I don't know, it's very, actually when I was knitting with it, the feel of it reminded me of Nutidin, which I have only barely knit with, and then I was like, I don't have the patience for this right now. It was like it's so delicate. You like look at it and it falls apart. But it was soft in the same way that this is soft, and this does not come apart because of the structure of the yarn. So it's like quite, actually I didn't ever try to see how hard I had to pull to break it. Okay, not super hard, but like way more strong than the Nutidin. This is like, I think it's called a blown yarn. So it has like a net of acrylic, polyamide, and then alpaca and wool fibers are like blown into the net. And so, anyways, entirely different structure than the Nutidin, but it feels similar in terms of like how the knitting, the type of fabric that it makes. I think that's what I'm trying to say. The fabric that it makes feels similar, which like probably is like sacrilegious to say for people who love Nutidin, which I know there are. I don't know if I love it yet or not. I might love it once I actually have the patience to knit with it. But it just, that's what it reminded me of. And then when it's done and it's so light and just like, it reminds me of angel food cake. That's what I decided. Which, if you're like, oh wow, I can understand what she means, like, that's great. I don't know how else to explain it. Because if you're like, what? Why does your sweater feel like angel food cake? But where it's like, it's light, but it has something like substance to it, you know, which I'm thinking about angel food cake of like, it's like quite sweet. So it's like has some like oomph to it, but it's like very delicate. So that's the best that I could come up with. And I do feel I'm going to stick with it. It feels accurate. But anyways, so I think that was all the adjustments that I made to it. I really like that this one has pockets on it because my phone lives in there. And I thought about adding pockets to this one, but I think that the fabric just does not have enough structure to it to like, it's not worth it. Like my phone in it would just like make the sweater sag so much that I'm like, that's not helpful then. So I will just leave it as it is. My pajama pants have pockets, so my phone can go in there. So yes, anyways, my son decided that this sweater was very soft and not too prickly. He is quite sensitive to wool and lets me know when, oh, Mom, I can't sit with you. Your sweater's so pokey. But he likes this one. It is very soft, very nice. I think it's warm. I haven't put it too much of a test yet because I literally just finished it like 2 days ago. And like I said, the weather is warm here. But anyways, yeah. So that's my finished object that I can show you. My other one, you will have to wait. But it is another blue cardigan. So I decided I needed more cardigans in my life, and I now have 2 more that I knit in the last little while. So next up is my Faye cowl, which I showed a little bit last time. I thought I had made more progress on this than I did. I don't know, I maybe had like up to here in it. Maybe I hadn't quite finished this section. Shoot, now I can't remember. I should have gone back and double checked. I think I hadn't finished this section yet. So maybe I have done more than I thought. Because, yes, I remember saying, okay, let me back up here. This is called the Fae Cowl. It is by Emma Barnaby. It's a free pattern on Ravelry. It's inspired by a pattern from Shetland Wool Week that uses a different needle size for the outside of the cowl and then versus the inside of the cowl. So then the inside is a tighter gauge and it like folds in, tucks in. You like knit this big tube, turn it in like in on itself, and then like graft these edges together. And I was trying to decide if I wanted to change needle sizes or not last time I recorded. That's what it was. Ultimately, I decided, no, I'm not going to change needle size. And then, also in my last episode, I was like, did I change the number of stitches that I cast on? Oh, I can't remember, because this had an adventure of like coming to being, of it being a different project first. Then I immediately was like, I don't like this. Cast it on incorrectly. I think I had the wrong number of stitches, and then I cast it on and it was twisted. And then for some reason I decided I was going to cast on less stitches. I wanted it to be very like cozy and snug. But that meant when I switched to the other colorwork pattern for the like what will be the inside of the cowl, the chart stitch count was not divisible by the number of, or my stitch count was not divisible by the chart stitch count, because I had changed it and forgotten. And so I ended up fudging some decreases in my first like round, and I'm knitting it at the same gauge as the outside, but it is smaller because there are fewer stitches now. So whatever, I did some modifications, I guess, by accident. It's just been a like pick up and I feel like knitting color work kind of thing. I haven't been doing tons of work on it, but every now and then. I'm knitting this with Frankie Gray fibers. There's like their fingering base, merino nylon, and the white gray color is one of their Taylor Swift colors called Folklore, and then the dark color is called just charcoal. And yeah, it's been an enjoyable knit. So much to it. This part is definitely faster than like, I don't know, this one was, I wrote it down last time, I can't remember now. I didn't write notes for today. 32 stitches across or something, and this one's like 8, I think technically, but the chart's written as 16, something like that. But it just repeats. So it's much more repetitive and easy to keep track of, and I have not been making mistakes like I was on this lower part that I had to like knit, go back and fix again. So anyways, I am excited to block it because my colorwork tension is not looking fantastic in this wool. I could say that because it's superwash wool that it's like the tension isn't as good, but I also just have not been as like in the flow with this one, which actually I think part of that is because I need a slightly shorter needle. I don't have a shorter needle, and so it's like I'm at the max circumference that my needles will allow me to go, or maybe I'm at the minimum circumference that my needles will allow me to go, and I need like a 3-inch needle instead of a 4-inch needle on here. I think that's what it is. And I don't have a 3-inch needle in this size because I got rid of that set. Anyways, so it's just, it's slowing me down a little bit, and I just like have been having a harder time getting into the rhythm of the color work. And I could switch and like do magic loop or something, but I don't like doing magic loop as much for color work. So anyways, I'm looking forward to blocking it, having it nicely laid out, grafting it together. I think it will be a nice cozy accessory for me come fall and winter. And yeah, here's what the ball of yarn looks like. So it's like there's every so once in a while some speckles, inspired by the Folklore album cover. Obviously the big news this month is Taylor Swift's new album. which, yes, I listened to the moment that it was released, and yes, I stayed up until what was midnight my time to see what the surprise was, because we were all speculating that there was a surprise and it was a double album, and I did not stay up in the middle of the night and listen to the rest of it, but I have been listening to it a lot, so I've been very much enjoying that. And actually, let me just segue right into my next project here. I also had bought the Eras colorway from Frankie Gray Fibers, and so it was inspired by just like the Eras tour like promo and stuff, and so then they made up these logos, or these can't talk. They made these ball bands with Frankie the cat on them. So anyways, so this is the Eras color. I'll put a picture of what it looked like before I skeined it up. And I'm making socks with it. This was the DK base, and I had socks in mind when I bought it. So yes, it is. So okay, you can see the color inspo there, you know? It's like they're very, very colorful, very speckly. Every once in a while I'll get a like rainbow in a row pretty much. I just cast these on yesterday maybe. And I don't really know why. I just like felt like I needed something different, like a new thing to work on. Like I have lots of whips, but I just like wanted something new. The skein of yarn was like staring at me from my shelf. I'm like, I have my couch here, and then I have my shelf across that has a bunch of yarn on it, and it was like staring at me. I was like, okay, it's time. It's like been so much Taylor Swift content consumed in this last week, whatever, since she released her album. I might as well. It's just time. It's time to knit my Taylor Swift socks. So, oh, I have another finished object now, I guess, that I forgot about. Last time I also was talking about how I don't like knitting socks, and I feel like there's an expectation that you always have socks on the needles. They're like this such easy thing to just like have in your purse or whatever while you're out and about, and you just can always be knitting because you always have a sock with you. But I like find them stressful to knit, and like have all these issues with like I get to the heel and then I'm like, okay, like I don't want to knit it anymore. It's like it feels too complicated. So I had a couple people suggest Earth Tones Girl tutorial for the shadow wrap heel, and so I decided, well, I don't like knitting socks, so I better knit a pair of socks. And my son had been asking for something out of this red yarn that he had found in my room down here, and I told him, how about I make you a pair of socks? And so I made a pair of socks. So kid size socks, he's 6, but still, I think that this is, so I had these mini skeins. I'm pretty sure the red is Lightsaber, Socknado Lightsaber, like the base is Socknado from Ancient Arts, and then I'm pretty sure the color is called Lightsaber, and then the blue I'm pretty sure is Little Blue Jacket from a long time ago collab that they had done with River City Yarns for like a Peter Rabbit colorway, and this was like the little mini skein that came with it, I think. Anyways, so I made him some socks. He has worn them one time. He decided he loves them. He thinks they're so cool. He doesn't think that they're very comfortable. So I don't know if he'll wear them or not. He wore them to bed. He likes how slippery they are. He was running around at bedtime, showing me how slippery they were. He promptly slipped and fell. But by the time I like saw him again in the morning, like he had changed into like regular socks. So I'd like explain to him, it's like they're gonna feel different than the ones from the store, like because I knit them by hand. If I was knitting the ones from the store, like they would take forever and the stitches would be so small, and so I feel like it's okay. My kids wear toques that I've knit them. Everything else that I've knit them has been like, take it or leave it. But I enjoyed the process of making these. I enjoyed how every time he saw me working on them, he just like his face would light up and he'd be so excited. And so it's okay if he, doesn't actually wear them. I still feel like it was a good thing to do. So anyways, I knit these 2 at a time and then decided I've only done that once before. Last time I made them socks because normally I use 9-inch circulars, but I can't. They're like the circumference is too small. And yeah, normally I don't like doing magic loop, but it felt more worthwhile. I find it tedious to like stop, I have to readjust my needles every time. But I felt like the inconvenience of that was more worth it if it meant that I was getting 2 socks knit at the same time. And so it was great, actually. It worked really well. I got to the heel, watched that tutorial. It was super helpful. It's kind of funny though, because I did it in the contrast color. I finished the end of her video and I was like, oh, maybe I should have double checked to see if she had one about doing it in contrast color. And then like YouTube suggested a like recommended video for you. It was like exactly that. It's like, no, she has a tutorial about doing it in a contrast color. So I had to fudge something at the end, but whatever, it was fine. It was super easy. So like, thank you to the people who recommended that tutorial. Definitely easier for my brain to keep track of like what I was doing, when I was supposed to do it. You don't have to increase any stitches. It's like very neat and tidy on both sides. That's one of the things that Earth Tones Girls what's her name? Can't think of it right now. Was saying in the tutorial is that like there's no holes. It's not like one side looks better than the other. So anyways, there's my other FO. And now I am knitting my socks 2 at a time. This is the pattern's called But First Socks. I just was looking for like a free DK weight sock pattern. I have never knit DK weight socks. Part of also what motivated me to try 2 at a time is that I got a new project bag from her Leather Co. She's from Calgary, so local to me, and I have a handful of her project bags. I really like them. This one has snaps on the top and has a few pockets on the inside and then this pocket here on the outside. I got it with a strap on it, which I might actually steal and use for my keys, but this has been so nice for knitting 2 at a time. I think this can be nice for color work because when I start to get tangled, I can untangle it like by twisting my knitting, but I was finding it so much easier to just like pick up my bag and like untwist the yarns. I have 2 balls of yarn. Like I split up the yarn inside, like weighed it out, and then put one strand through one set of snaps and one strand through a different set of snaps, so they always stay separate. My balls are not bouncing around everywhere. They're not getting tangled amongst themselves. The tangle can never like make it to the ball because of the bag and the snaps and whatever, and it has helped so much. So shout out to Lisa from her Leather Co. And yes, I will absolutely be using this for color work too, because I often get tangled up in my yarn for that, and it's been very nice for doing these 2 at a time socks. The only thing is, with this skein in particular, I can't see the skein. And I kind of wish that I could because it looks cool, but it also means that I'm not losing my mind getting all tangled up in yarn. So another thing I did, when I've done 2 at a time socks before, I've gotten confused about which sock I'm on. Am I on the front or the back? I labeled them this time. Wasn't that such a smart idea? So, and I put 1 stitch marker on one and 2 on the other so that I could keep track of which sock I was on, because I would put them down and then pick them back up again and not know what I was doing. So these ones have a pattern on the front. The other ones obviously were just round and round, but anyways, and then I just been like shoving it in that front pocket, and yes. So okay, the other thing that's exciting that I have been working on is a new sweater, which is called the Admix Pullover. It's by Jared Flood of Brooklyn Tweed, and this pattern came out just a couple of weeks ago, March 12th. And maybe I'll just show you. I'll put it up on screen, just kidding. One of the samples is what I thought was red. Turns out it's more of an orange, but like red and blue. And it's just like, it just stuck with me, you know, like, you know, when you see them and it just, you see a pattern or you see a yarn and it just like, it just hits you. It's like, wow, that's so beautiful. I like could not get this sweater out of my head. And I just wanted to recreate that exact sweater. Like in those colors. It uses 2 Brooklyn tweed bases. So one of them is Dapple, which is their DK Targhee, 100% Targhee. And then the other one's Dapple. Did I say Dapple first? Brooklyn Tweed Arbor, which is their 100% Targhee. And then Dapple, which is 60% merino, 40% cotton. And so it is very interesting to knit with. The Weekender crew neck by Andrew Mowry is knit with this, and I want to make it now. It's like, it's so nice, and I'm knitting it like in this like stripe pattern, and so I'm not like getting a full like feel of what just that fabric feels like, but in this skein, like it's so lovely. So if you've knit with it before, then you should tell me what you think. If you haven't knit with it before, like you should give it a try. It's very interesting. So anyways, this is where I'm at so far. Let me find the front. This is knit in pieces, bottom up, in this, what they call the Admix pattern. And so yeah, it's like a slip stitch pattern. No, it's not slip stitches. It's like a knit one below. And probably there's like another, like I've never done like fisherman's rib or something. Doesn't that do knit one below? I can't remember. Anyways, it's just an interesting, interesting stitch pattern. I'll show you my little swatch here. Because it's actually flat, but. So each stripe is 2 rows, and it's like, it's 20 stitches by 44 rows is the gauge. And so like it'll be slow going to like actually get the length, right? Having to do 44 rows to get to 4 inches. And one thing that was weird is that I cast on, so I made 3 swatches. This is a bad one. Don't do your swatch like this. There's 2 different stitch patterns that you need to swatch for, and so I did them on the same swatch, but they have like a wildly different gauge, and so it just like, it messed with this part's all distorted. I started unraveling the top part. I knit another one, still didn't get gauge, unraveled that one, knit this one. I kept getting the same gauge. It didn't matter what needle size I was using. I kept getting 18 stitches. I could not get 20. I kept going down and down and down. And then I went and bought bamboo needles. I usually use like the metal chalgu needles, which I love. I have like a bazillion of them. I have a pair of knit picks, or I have like a set of knit picks interchangeable needles that I don't love because the cords bug me. The needles themselves are just fine, but the cords, like once you have a chalgu cord, it's like all the rest of them feel so like annoying. So I bought some chalgu bamboo tips to try, and it didn't matter. I could only get 18 stitches. And so I decided, fine, that's what this yarn wants to be. That's what my knitting style wants it to be. I'm using the exact same yarns that the pattern was designed in. I can't get the gauge. So I'm at 18 stitches and like 41 rows or something. I should double check what my row gauge was once I actually started knitting it. Because now I'm thinking, yeah, it's even a bit looser than that. But my stitch gauge is fine. So I cast on for a different size, and I will do some math as I go. I kind of wish that it was like, that the density of the fabric was a little bit tighter, but it's fine. So, but yeah, just weird. Like I couldn't get it to be any different. But I am using the bamboo needles, and they do feel different to knit with, but whatever, it's fine. It has this like 3 inches of 1x1 ribbing along the bottom, which then I did that in a larger needle size. I had to go down so much for my pattern like needle that then normally you go down like 1 or 2 needle sizes for the ribbing, right? And so I cast that on. Actually, I put a picture of it up on my Instagram because I had not yet realized. I'm like, oh, this is not going to work. But it's Italian tubular bind cast on, and it's like so beautiful. Like maybe I'll put up a picture, but it's just like, it's so beautiful how the cast on just like rolls over the edge. But then I like happily was knitting away on my 100 and some stitches, and on my smaller needle size then, like I'm using a 3 millimeter needle. So I think I was using like a 2.5 then for the ribbing, and it was so small and tight. Like, okay, so I actually ended up using a 3.25 millimeter for the ribbing, and then went down to a 3 millimeter once I started the like Admix pattern. And you can see how, like, obviously the ribbing like pulls in on itself, and it'll stretch out with like when I seam it and wear it, obviously, right? But anyways, so that's just kind of interesting. There aren't that many, it's a brand new pattern, right? So like there's not that many projects on Ravelry. It was just the people who were like doing the preview knitting. And I did read through all of them. I don't think that anybody else had that same issue, but anyways, so yeah, I'd said that in the sample picture, I thought it was red and blue. It's actually like more of an orange color, but I was like, oh, I don't actually like orange that much, so I don't want to do the orange, and so I chose red instead. So this one is just like, it's the most like perfect red color in my opinion. It's called Alizarin, and then I'm using Dapple in Blueprint, which is the one that's used in the sample. And the Fibre had all of these in stock, which was perfect. It was like the colors that I wanted, the yarns that I wanted, and so I always love to get to support my local yarn shops. So I also bought some other yarn that day, but anyway, so yeah, I have a nice bag full of Brooklyn tweed. I have a sweater's quantity of Puri, and I have some loft that I had bought to make my kid a sweater years ago that I never finished because he told me, at least he told me beforehand, he's like, I don't like it, Mom. So I stopped making it. So I have like probably 3 balls or something of Brooklyn tweed loft. It's like it's half knit into a sweater, a small kid size sweater. I need to decide what I want to do with it, but otherwise I haven't knit with it before, I don't think. So I am loving it so far. Also, the pattern was quite expensive. I want to say it was like 20 some bucks. Let me just double check. Okay, it was 16 US, and so whatever that turns out to be Canadian, it was 20 some bucks, right? Which is like a lot for a knitting pattern. That's more than average. But this is also the first Brooklyn tweed pattern that I've knit from, and I don't know, like, so yeah, I don't know what their other patterns are like. I know they've recently switched to like, they're just Jared Flood's patterns are going to be released under the Brooklyn tweed name. You know, previously they would have like lots of designers and they're kind of like design house or whatever. But the pattern is very beautiful. Like, it's, to me, I'm like, oh, you're getting your money's worth from that. This like more expensive pattern. It's like very nicely laid out. They have like a really nice, like an overview of the pattern instructions. They have like a separate page for like, here's your different gauges. They have a really nice schematic. They have lots of modifications for like, they have 3 different lengths. They have 2 different sleeve lengths, and so they have all the numbers in there for you about that. They have like a pattern specs page, and they have all of they have like a little chart showing all the yardages you need depending on which variation of the pattern you want to do, which is just nice. They have a nice, like, yeah, an overview of what the pattern is going to be, and then yeah, a construction overview they call it, which it's helpful for my brain to know this is where we're going to start. This is what's going to happen now. Here's where the increases are going to be. Next, you're going to do this. It's also kind of a weird construction because you end up like, that's what it will look like before you fold it and then seam it together. And so like maybe that's why they've included that into it then, right? Of like having the little overview and whatever. But oh yeah, and then they also have you fill in for your size what numbers you need. And so it has like the chart where you say like, okay, here's, you know, number cast on A stitches. And you like go to the chart and see, okay, for me, for my size, it's this many. So when you're actually knitting it, like you only see your numbers, which I really like. It's just less busy then as you're looking through. You don't have to look at 11 numbers, you just have to look at your one number. So anyways, I was impressed, I guess, with like how thorough the pattern is, and it made me like feel better about spending 25 bucks on a knitting pattern, and then also a bazillion dollars on the yarn, right? So anyways, the shape of it and everything, like I think it's gonna be like the perfect sweatshirt for me. And the red is like more bold than what I would normally choose to wear, but I really like how the stitch pattern like uses the two different colors, uses the two different bases. I'm really excited about it. So yeah, it does feel like slow going, but it's also like, it's quite rhythmic. You knit 2 rows, one of them's just a plain row, and then the other one uses the like whatever their little like knit one below pattern is, and then you switch colors, and so it's like I feel like that keeps you engaged. And yeah, so I'm excited about this one. I haven't worked on it now in a couple of days because I was just doing other things, but yeah. So there's another whip. Another random thing that I've been working on. I organized my knitting room. I think it was like right before I filmed my last episode, and it's like stayed relatively clean, partly because I haven't been doing any sewing. When I sew, it just like everything explodes, and so that's been like helping it stay a bit tidier down here. But one of the things I did is that I sorted through all of my random tidbits of yarn, and so I had bought the Sweet Shop blanket pattern when it first came out from Penrose. And that was one of the things that I cast on like before Christmas when I was like, I just need a comforting knit. And then I was like, just kidding, this does not feel comforting. It felt complicated. Figuring out, it's like you join as you go, knitting these like garter triangles, garter squares. But and so I had joined as I went, and I was like, oh, like it just didn't look right, and like it felt too, it's not hard, but it felt too hard for me at the time. And so then I had this idea, oh, why don't I'll just knit them separate and then I will seam them, which is like so not the point of the pattern. And yes, Laura has it all laid out very nicely so that you can build it into the exact like size and shape that you want, and different instructions depending on which square you're working and all these things. And then you don't have, if you join as you go, you don't have to do all the sewing at the end. But also because I'm just using random scraps, it does not feel comforting or freeing to not be able to plan where my colors go. And so when I was organizing all of my yarn, I like laid everything out, organized it kind of by color, got a sense of like where I want it to go with this blanket. I would rather be able to choose exactly where each square goes and then seam it than knit it all as one and then afterwards be like, oh, that square looks completely out of place, because that would really bug me. So I have only knit these 3 now. I had to rip one out and redo it, and the one I made, this one I made back in December. This was like my first one, and then I like started building onto this one, right? And I was like, nope, it looks weird. But like my gauge has changed a little bit, but like it doesn't matter, it's fine. But I have all these random leftovers, a fingering weight yarn, so you hold it double, and because I have a very consistent color story in the yarn that I buy, like it will be mostly blues and purples. Like here's where some of my yarn is. Like this one will not be making an appearance. Red will not be making an appearance, but like all of these blues, like yes, pink maybe if I can like transition that into purple, but anyway, so I have that. cookie jar full of yarn. And then I have another bin that's full of random like skeins of stock yarn that I've accumulated that maybe I will become an avid sock knitter here now, but probably not. But some of those are going to go into the blanket. I had timed myself to see how long it would take me to knit one square, so I kind of had a bit of an idea. And I had only bought one ball of my like main color, and now I'm almost out. And so, because I wanted to like test it out and see if I liked this idea before I committed to buying a sweater's quantity, or not a sweater's quantity, a blanket's quantity of this, which is just Metropolis by Shepius, which is the Netherlands. I think that's what it is. I just started watching this Sarah, who is a very funny and lovely Dutch woman who, yeah, she was saying it and I was like practicing how to say the word. So anyways, this is just like fairly inexpensive sock yarn, and then I will be using mostly hand-dyed skeins of random yarn for the other colors. So I only have 3 done. I need to do a bazillion more. This will be a very long-term project, but it's simple, it's easy, it's like fun to have the different colors. I think that each of those squares, the like contrast color triangle, has like multiple different yarns in it. Like it's going to be such a mishmash. Oh yeah, so the I think it was in that one, and then also like Laura Penrose is putting out she's like the Stella quilt cushion, and then it's the blanket. She has another one coming out. Oh yeah, and then she's like, you know, with those scraps, she's making like a scrappy blanket and like a scrappy crochet blanket or something, and how there's like, it's freeing to be able to just like not know which color is going to be next. And like she is kind of being particular about, with her Stella quilt blanket, I think that's what it was called, about kind of which color she's using. But anyways, that there's like freedom in that. That does not feel freeing to me. That feels like restrictive to me, or like not restrictive. It gives me anxiety, and I don't want my knitting to give me anxiety. But the part that's freeing to me is that I am not going to know every single colorway of every single yarn that goes into this blanket, which that I'm like, oh, but I really like knowing all that information. And like some of them I will be able to identify, but I don't have ball bands for lots of them anymore, and some of them like look really similar to a different one, and so I don't know which one's which. And some of them it's like, oh yeah, I used some of that yarn in my exploration station shawl, so like I guess I could look back on that and see what the colorway was and stuff. But that will be how I find freedom in my knitting with this Sweet Shop blanket, is that I will not know every single name of every single yarn that's in it. And maybe it doesn't seem like a big deal, but it feels like a big deal to me. So anyways, that's another thing I've been picking away at. The other thing is, last time I had mentioned that I'd cast on for the last piece of my Rowan cardigan, which has been a very long-term whip, and I'd only done a little bit of the front panel of that, but now I've done a larger chunk of that, including adding on the pocket. And so this is the last piece. This is the left side, which looks weird unblocked. That's the left panel, this is the right panel, and so obviously I have like quite a bit more to knit of that, but it's coming along. I feel energized about it being the last piece of the cardigan. Some of it has been blocked, and actually I think the rest of it has been blocked, so I'll need to block these 2 front pieces, and then I'll get to seam it together, and then I have to do the collar, like the button band, whatever, which will be a long project, but it's just ribbing, it's not cables everywhere, so it'll go fast, I think. So yeah, this is a cardigan I cast on in August last year. It might be done by August so it'll be like a year from when I started it. It has been a big project. I hadn't worked on this in quite a while, and so it was kind of funny then when I went to knit on it again, of how quickly my hands remembered all the cables. They're not hard, like they're all like 2x2 or 2x1 cables. But it just like, oh yeah, I've done these a bazillion times, these stitch patterns. And although then I like wasn't paying attention and immediately made a mistake. And so then I had to like, I knit an inch before I was like, wait a second, I miscrossed that cable like in my first round, my first row. So I had to like drop back and fix it. But anyways, I was slowing down because I knew I had to get the pocket on, but now it's on, I can just go. So I have to knit for however many inches. I'm going to start, there's waist shaping. And then once I get to like the armhole shaping and stuff like that I'll have to pay more attention again. But, right now it's just, it can just be a comforting knit again. So, yeah, this is in, Briggs and Little Heritage. It's quite woolly. It softened up and bloomed like so beautifully when I blocked the other pieces, which was exciting. And I'm really hoping that it fits okay. My gauge was off, and so I'm like knitting a different size, and then, but I didn't account for difference in row gauge. And so when you just have to knit for, knit 8.5 inches before you add the pocket, like that doesn't matter, I'll just knit 8.5 inches. But if it's decrease every 6 rows for however many rows to do the armhole shaping, like then your row gauge matters. And so I think it's gonna end up being bigger than what I want it to be, which is better than the opposite of it being too small. Anyways, it's like way too late to to change anything about that. I think I mentioned before that I thought I was gonna lose more length when you like block it out, because like when you stretch out a cable and it like shortens things this way, but it like hardly did at all. And so my sleeves are quite long, but they're like the right amount of long that I can just roll the cuff up, which is, I like that look anyway, so it's fine. So yeah, I think that is all of my it's not all my whips, but that's all the whips that I will talk about today. A couple other things that happened in the last month was I went to a yarn festival, and then I also did a virtual knitting conference. So I just wanted to talk about that a little bit. I have a bit of yarn that I bought at the yarn festival. It was the Rose City Fibre Fest, I think that's what it was called, which is in Penrose, which is about an hour from Edmonton. And they do it on the same weekend as an alpaca show. And so, yeah, there are, on the one half of this like egg facility is like alpacas and all of their owners, and like they're doing their little alpaca show, and the person coming and like examining all of the things about the alpaca, I don't know. And then the other half is a big yarn festival. And so yeah, just like a bunch of local dyers, and I went with a friend and her mom and also my 2 kids. So that was kind of interesting. Taking well, he's now 6. His birthday was yesterday. He was 5 at the time. 5 and 8, my 8-year-old, to a yarn show. I made them a little like bingo for them to look for things while we were shopping, which my 8-year-old then thought like, oh, we better bring a basket so that it's going to be like a treasure hunt. He was thinking like an Easter egg hunt. So then when we buy all of those things, then we can carry them. And I was like, oh, actually, we're not buying 25 things. You can just look for 25 things on your bingo. And so because I knew some of the vendors that were going to be there, I like picked, so some of it was like, like red yarn, orange yarn, like did all the colors of the rainbow, but then some of them was like wooden buttons, because I knew that there was going to be wooden buttons there, or wool pellets, because I knew that those were going to be there, and different things about alpacas, and a brown alpaca, and alpaca poop, and like whatever. And so that helped. It kept them engaged in what would otherwise not be very interesting for them. Once they saw a few skeins of colorful yarn, like then they were pretty much done. But one of the first, actually the first booth that we went into was from Over the Moon Yarn, and they found, I think, all of their rainbow yarn there. But right away, my son like went beelined for this yellow yarn, and it's very soft. It's alpaca, lace weight alpaca, Korea, and it's very, very drapey and soft. And so right away he's like, Mom, I want it. So I was like, okay, this is the first booth we've gone into, so we're gonna walk around the rest of the place. But afterwards then I kind of was like, okay, we talked about what he might want with it. Like I said, sometimes I knit things for my kids and then they never wear them, but they do love their toques, and I suggested maybe a like neck warmer with this, and he thought that was a good idea because it's so soft. So I'm planning to hold it double and like make a neck warmer for him. And then my other son picked out this blue yarn, also from Over the Moon. This one's just a like super wash merino nylon, and this will turn into a toque for him. That's what he decided. So that's some of the yarn that I bought. So that was for them. What I bought for myself was these little minis from Rose Hill Yarns. There's 5 minis there. They had half skeins as well, which I almost bought. I was like, oh, I don't need that. But I just was so drawn to these colors. And they had a lovely like sample of it knit up like with the fade. I really love Rose Hill Yarns colors. Like they're so, and their skeins just like, they're so crisp and like beautiful looking. So anyways, I was looking through them, and like my kids were needing a break from like all of the, yeah, being in that space. And so I was like, I'll come back. So like we like left and like had a snack and like, yeah, calmed down a little bit. And then I came back and like beelined. I was like, okay, but I just bought the mini skeins. I think that they will go into my Sweet Shop blanket. So I do not need more yarn to go in them, but the colors were just so perfect with the ones I already have. And yeah, I felt like that was a good way to use, instead of me standing there trying to plan a sweater, like a sweater fade with like the other skeins, like I'll just buy the minis, and yes, they're so cute and lovely. Then the other thing that I bought was this bat of fiber from Curious Fox Fibers. This was something else that was on the bingo that I made for my kids because I knew that I was going to buy it. I think I would have talked about this on my podcast. I took a spinning class with Dan, and we like got to make our own art bats. That was maybe last summer. I'm not sure. I have not spun up that bat, but I just couldn't resist another one. So this is, again, just like my colors exactly, blues and purples, and it has, I don't remember what all Dan said was in it, but it's like, I'm gonna guess merino, and then it has like some silk and some locks and stellina, and yeah, I haven't unrolled it yet to see, but it's like, it's very fluffy, and I've been admiring it as it's been sitting on my desk the last couple of weeks. I think that's all the things that I bought that day. Oh, I bought a mug. I bought a cat mug from Shelly's Artistry. Shoot. I'll put it up on the screen. But that was another thing that was on my bingo card because I knew that they were going to be there, and I have wanted one of these cat mugs for a very long time. They're like often at the local shows here, and I've never bought one. And the last time I saw them at a yarn show, they didn't have any more cat mugs. And so I knew if like I see a cat mug today, I'm going to buy a cat mug. So I did, and it's adorable. And okay, that might be everything that I bought that day then. One more random acquisition that I got. I had done that blanket for Lainey test knit for the Bluebird box for Anna. And I had also done the Mid-Mountain Pullover test knit for her. And for that one, she takes like a random draw from her group of testers and sends them a skein of yarn. And so I won the draw for the Mid-Mountain Pullover. And so she sent me a skein of Crux Fibers, which was fun. And then I won the draw again, which is so funny. And I hadn't seen her message. And so I just like went to my mailbox this week and I was like, oh, that's weird. Like, why do I have a box of yarn or like a box from her? And so then she had written a note saying like, I don't know if you saw, like you won the draw again. So she sent me a skein of Sassy Strings, which is another local dyer. You can really see it's not quite that bright of a blue. It's like my perfect color of blue. So this is a worsted weight super wash merino. It says Steel Harbor. And so yeah, it's like my very favorite color of blue. You know, people are like, I never win things. I'm like, I never win things. And so it's so funny. There's only like, I don't know, there's like 6 or 8 of us or something in the test group for the blankets. Like I had pretty good odds, but anyways, I'm excited for this because it's just like my very favorite color. So Thanks, Anna. Okay, so speaking of yarn to give away, let me show you what I pulled some skeins from my collection that I would like to give away to people, and they're all local, like Alberta dyers. It just makes me so happy to get to use yarn that was dyed by a local business, small business. Yeah, it just like, yeah, makes me very happy. So I wanted to like spread some of that love to you guys. So let me grab, I have a little basket of yarn. And so I think what I'm going to do is just like, I'll do a random draw of people. I've got 4 skeins of yarn to give away. And make sure you're subscribed. Leave a comment telling me what you're working on right now that's bringing you joy. And I will just like pick 4 people at random. I don't know if the like bots are gonna find me on my like little corner of YouTube, but beware about that. I know that like, I don't know, they just like ruin the fun for everybody and like start spamming people in the comments, and like I don't need that, okay? Like I don't need the bots to start spamming people saying you won a prize, just send me your credit card information and then I'll send it to you. I don't know what they do. I don't know what they try and scam people about. It's so frustrating. Anyways, beware about that. I will see, this is why I hadn't said it right at the beginning, because I was still deciding what I was going to do. I want to be able to just reply to you on your comments, say, hey, you won. But like, that's how the bots get you. But I'm going to reply and say, hey, you won the skein of yarn from the Yak Yarnery or whatever, and then tell you to message me. And then, but you have to message me on Instagram or on Ravelry. That's the thing. That's why it's annoying. So anyways, this is my first giveaway. I'm doing my best, okay? Let me show off what I have. Here's the first skein. So yeah, this one is from the Yak Yarnery, which is a shop in Rocky Mountain House, who they sell a lot of like other yarn as well, but then she also dyes her own yarn. So this one is Merino Yak Nylon, 3-ply superwash, 50 grams in like very lovely colors. Yeah, that's one of them. Another one is a set from, this is gonna fall, a set from Rosehill Yarns. So like a sock set. It's a full skein and then 3 little minis. This was from Edmonton Fibre Frolic event, which was like one of our old yarn festivals. And again, I love Rosehill Yarns. They're from a small town. I want to say Kalmar, but I'm not sure. But yeah, a small town south of Edmonton. And I just really love their colorways. So that will be one of them. So here's the next one. This is from Comfy Cozy Knits. It's a self-striping sock yarn. This is an Edmonton dyer. It's just like in my very favorite colors. So yeah, this one's just like an 80-20 merino nylon, 115 gram skein. It's very plump and lovely. So that will go to somebody. And then the last one is a skein from Ancient Arts, which is my favorite. They are in Calgary. This one is one of their new bases. It's called Herlig DK, and it's 50% Norwegian Viking wool, they call it, and 50% Norwegian. Been talking too much. 50% merino, and this is the color cranberry. It's like woolly, and this one's DK weight, and yeah, woolly and plump. And I have a couple other skeins of this that I have been collecting, and yes, really like it. So there we go. Those are the 4 skeins I'm going to give away. And yeah, so comment below what you're working on that's bringing you joy. I will pick a name at random, pick 4 names at random, comment on your post telling you which skein you have won, and then hope that we can figure out a way to contact each other without the bots interfering. So I think that's everything. Well, it is everything. I just double checked my notes. Oh, I was going to talk about the knitting conference. Should I do that still? I'll just talk about it quickly. The Knitting Guild Association had a knitting conference last weekend, which I heard about because of Ancient Arts actually. Caroline Sommerfeld was, well, Ancient Arts was one of the sponsors, and then Caroline did one of the talks. And so, which I have heard her speak many times. She's like very wonderful and very good presenter and just like very knowledgeable. She was talking about, yeah, just kind of like different yarn bases, how they come to be. She was talking through some of different examples of her yarn that she's developed like with the mill in Italy or like whatever. And if you ever get a chance to like do a class with her or listen to a lecture from her, like I highly recommend it. And then, so that was, yeah, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. There was different classes that you could do. You could just like register for the whole weekend and then pick, you know, at 9:30 which class you wanted to do. There was like 4 or 5 to choose from, and then it was all online, and so I can go back and like watch the classes, the ones that I didn't get to do. Some of them were focused on, the Knitting Guild Association does the Master Hand Knitting certification, and so some of the classes were kind of focused on that, of like the things that people needed to do to complete their requirements for the program. But lots of the other ones were just like general knitting knowledge or advanced knitting techniques or first time trying whatever thing. And a couple of the classes I was like, nah, whatever. But then some of them were like, wow, this is amazing. And so one of the ones that I really enjoyed was with Suzanne Bryant, who I'm sure you have come across her on YouTube because she has so many tutorials and she's so good. She also has a really great Facebook group. So anyways, she did a class about compensating for changes in stitch and row gauge. And so like say you're knitting stockinette and then you're switching to cable, it's like you can either change, like your stitch gauge is going to be different, so you can either adjust for that by using a different needle size, or you can adjust for that by using a different stitch count. And so she was going through the math of like how to figure out which stitch count you could adjust for either row gauge or for either stitch gauge or row gauge, and using short rows then on your rows in order to like balance everything out. Anyways, it was like super nerdy and I loved it. I did not just explain it well. And that was really wonderful. Another one I can't remember the instructor's name now, but she was talking about how to repair Fair Isle. So like she was giving the example of like all over Fair Isle colorwork sweater that she'd had a hole in the elbow, and so like she worked in a patch over top that was like seamless, and yes, very scary because she just like cut into her knitting. She also has tutorials on her YouTube channel, so I'll link those as well. The one evening was a chat with I can't remember their name now, I should have looked it up. A yarn, like a farm who produces yarn in the Hudson Valley in New York. And it was really, yeah, it was just a very charming and lovely story of like how this farm came to be and how they developed like the merino breed program and stuff in the States. I'm not explaining that well either, but that was cool. So I'll link them too. You can like check out their website. And yeah, anyway, so that was good. It's been a while since I've done like during COVID, I did a lot of the Vogue knitting ones because they were all online. I don't know if they're still doing online ones or not. And it's been a while since I've done them, like done any classes or anything like that. So I quite enjoyed it. Like some of them, like I said, some of the classes I was like, I wish this wasn't live so that I could just like fast forward this. But then some of them it was like, this is so complicated, I love it. So yeah, I enjoyed that. And anyways, so yeah, that was the knitting conference last weekend. Okay, I think that is now everything. So thanks for being here today and also throughout this past year. I am very grateful for this community of people that I have found through knitting, and yeah, getting to like geek out about my knitting with other people. It's just brought me a lot of joy this year. I'm truly just so grateful to all of you for hanging out with me this year. It really means a lot. I'm glad that I can like give away a few things to a few people, but like I wish that I could do more. Like it's just such a small like snippet of my gratitude, because there's, yeah, it's meant so much to me this year. So thank you for being here, and I will catch you next time. Happy knitting.